So, good morning, everybody. As Favor did mention, my name is Imran. I graduated about 6 or 7 months ago with a degree in uh, business analytics and AI. My research at that time was based on optimization of machine learning models as well as the ethics around it, right? So when Favor was mentioned that we were having a tech cafe over here, I basically jumped at the chance because it was really interesting and I thought I would have some really important things to say about it in terms of what AI is, in terms of the positives as well as the negatives, as well as some misconceptions that a lot of people may have. And my aim here is to actually help people learn what AI is, as well as how to use it in a safe manner. All right. So, what is AI? So, AI, at its core concept, is basically a machine learning model. So, a bunch of zeros and ones that are trained on data sets that essentially help it create or come to certain decisions using certain patterns that it identifies based on the data. So a lot of these new machine learning models that have been introduced over the last, say, 3 to 5 years have been able to sort of fine tune what certain people's decision makings are, and based on it, they're able to imitate how a person would think, what a person would do. That's based on sort of like things like sort of decision making, problem solving, and for the most part, actually, what's the most interesting right now is actually learning. Um, so there's a lot of different types of AI models right now, things that generate videos, things that models that, as I mentioned over there, will generate audio based on what you say for it. So, for example, if I'm speaking the way I am, you can take that and let's say translate it into French or Spanish or whatnot, so that the person on the other side of your conversation can understand it fully. Um, and there's always new and different AI models being developed. It's a really new industry for the most part. Actually, over the last weekend, I was over at Queen's Law in Kingston discussing with a bunch of different future lawyers about how to ethically use AI in a legal context, because a lot of people try to find out how to use or try to figure out what their case is in terms from a legal perspective, whether or not it is a case or if it's not a case. And in my case, I was actually trying to help them outline how to create that model and use the data in a ethical way, because of course there's a lot of issues when it comes to data collection. A lot of people will not want to have their data be given to faceless, nameless conglomerates, of course, right? So is AI new? Honestly, this one, I think a lot of people will be surprised. AI's been around since about the 50s and 60s. But yeah, so of course, like the main issue, of course, was like the amount of computational power they would have had would have been a lot less. So certain predictive models might have been a lot less robust than what they are today. So over in the 90s and early 2000s, a lot of these models, you would have probably seen them in, let's say, for example, your emails when you get any sort of spam or junk mail, being able to read that data and filter it out to your spam folder because it might be, it's something, it's a useless email or whatnot. That's one of the types of AI models that was quite early when it came to AI model development. And because of how much information we have right now, companies, every company is a data company right now. So because of the amount of data that they have right now, they have been able to make very robust models, which is of course a positive for us when it comes to making things easier. But at the same time, of course, do you want that data available to them? And that's going to be a question for to ask yourself, of course. When it comes to like new AI or the newer AI models, a lot of them you've probably used them before. For example, like let's say a Google Translate. If you've ever used that to, let's say, translate foreign writing to English or vice versa, that's an option. If you're ever on a website and have a question, there's a little icon that pops up on the bottom of your screen that usually says, "How can I help?" So those questions are always being answered usually by an AI first, and then if the problem is a bigger problem, it might get passed on to a real human. And of course, there's a lot more programs that we might not see, or I won't get too much into, so that we can actually get to our little workshop afterwards. But why is AI so popular right now? So the most recent advancements, I think, if you've heard about AI in the last 3 to 5 years, I'd say the most recent advancement probably is ChatGPT, or a lot of these, or something of the similar, where you'd write a question to it, or you'd ask it a query, and it would spit out an answer for you, whether it's right or wrong. You have to do a bit more digging for that. But of course, a lot of these models have become a lot better over the last 2 or 3 years as well. And a lot of these models, instead of being just available to, let's say, an Apple or an Amazon, now it's available for us to use as well. So if you go onto Google, for example, and search a term, not only will it show up with the results like normal, but it'll also give you some AI curated results based off of your searches as well. So in terms of misconceptions around AI, these are a few questions that I actually asked to myself when I first started using AI and playing around with it. And the main one is actually, is the AI always right? That's the main one that I really want to get down to, because at the end of the day, these programs that are being developed, they're based off of data that they are actually provided, right? So if the data itself is incorrect, the information it spits out to you is going to be incorrect. So that's where fact checking a lot of the information that it gives you is always important. You can use it as a tool, but don't use it as your number one resource for information. Also, of course, a lot of people will use AI for anything and everything once they start getting used to it. That's also not the right way, because you limit your own thinking as well. So you, as I said, use it as a tool, but don't let that stop you from making your own informed decisions. And also, on that last point there, is AI just for young people? That's up to you, for you to decide, to be honest, right? Like, honestly, a lot of these applications and programs that are being made, they can be used by anybody and everybody. But of course, while you guys might not be at the very forefront, people are making programs that can be used for seniors. Things like healthcare apps, things like, for example, transcribing. So let's say if I'm talking to you via a video call, they'll be able to transcribe the words so that in case that you need to read along or something, or if you've missed something, they are able to actually get my words word for word and send it. And you'll get a little, if you need a little transcript or something of the sort, that's available. Now, in terms of the risks for AI, as I mentioned for the first one with its misinformation, so because of if the data set is biased, the information is going to be biased. Or if the data is incorrect, sorry, the information may be incorrect. And that also feeds onto the point for bias in data. There's been a lot of issues actually over the last couple of years where the AI models would actually discriminate against people based off of certain questions or queries that they've given to them. And that's just based on the actual data that is being given to it, as well as the person that's actually making those models. That's why I focused on ethics in terms of my research, because making an ethical model, an ethical AI model, is very important, and you have to actually start at the very top, right at the beginning of your model building. From when you look at that data, it has to be unbiased, and some people don't do it, and unfortunately, it impacts a lot of people in a negative way. And in terms of data collection, that's another thing. Everybody that uses a service nowadays has their data collected, but you have to, because of how our laws are written nowadays, it's actually, you have the option whether or not you want your data to be collected or not. A lot of people, myself included, are not very comfortable with their data being collected. And usually for a lot of these websites, a little pop-up will come up the first time you actually navigate to those websites, and just clicking deny for cookies or any sort of data collection things, just essentially just reading the prompt. If it has to do with data collection, if you're comfortable with your own data being collected, by all means, let them collect it. But if you're not comfortable with that, click deny. They won't collect it from you. On that data collection point, 750 billion. That's the average size of a data set, the number of data points that a data set has in 2023. And if you look at this chart, actually, just look at 2022, the amount of data that a lot of these companies were collecting before, right? So that's where it comes to, like, are you comfortable with your data being collected? Because these companies have shifted from being product and service companies to data collection companies for the most part. So if you're comfortable with that much data being collected, by all means, go ahead. But of course, you don't have to. You have to give them your consent to collect it. So by all means, don't let it be collected if you don't want to. And also with staying safe with AI, just make sure that you're actually as I was mentioning, the being comfortable with the data that's being collected. And sometimes you can allow certain types of data to be collected and other types of data to not be collected. So that is an option as well. Also, very important, especially when you're using, let's say, Google or ChatGPT or a lot of these, or even like healthcare apps, if you're asking questions, verify that the information that they're actually giving you is correct. Take 1 or 2 more minutes to double check that the information that they're giving you is actually from a reputable source. A lot of these chat bots, actually, when you ask it a question, you can ask it, where did you get that information from, right? So, and if it gives you a bogus link or something like that, so you'll know right away that the information is more than likely not accurate. And also, don't share sensitive information, because if they are collecting information from you, if you don't want that sort of sensitive data or information to be collected, you're better off not sharing it whatsoever. Now, in terms of practical uses of AI, I've actually covered a couple of them throughout the presentation. One of the most widely used ones, and one that you've probably had in your pocket for the last, I'd say, give or take 15 years, is voice assistants. So if you've got an iPhone, you have Siri. If you've got an Android, you probably have some form of, either on the Samsung, it's called Bixby, or on Google, it might be called Google Assistant, things like that. So being able to ask it questions is an option that's available for most people. So you don't have to take out the old laptop or whatnot and ask the questions on that. You can just do it directly off of your phone. Also, as I was mentioning, the live captioning for the calls, that's really important. Like, I use it all the time because sometimes I I'm not paying attention to certain presentations or whatnot. So being able to just use those, get the actual like transcripts of the calls after the fact in case I've missed any information, I find is pretty important. Healthcare and medical devices, if you have any sort of like internet connected watch or anything of the sort, those can help you make AI driven decisions when it comes to your healthcare needs or medical needs. Real-time translations. If you've ever used something like Google Translate or of the sort, you can actually take a photo or just open up your camera and it'll translate any sort of words that you don't understand directly into English or whatever language you're comfortable with. And reading assistants. Actually, I use this quite a bit because I find that it's a bit difficult to read sometimes. And what it'll do is there's an app actually called Audible that can basically people will upload their books, you buy the book, and instead of having to read sometimes if it's a bit difficult, you can actually get it to to read the book to you, basically, so that it makes it a little bit easier to actually use. Now, getting started with AI, for the most part, if you guys actually want to try like a little live demo, if you got your phones or anything, like you can try a variety of different apps or whatnot. Earlier this morning, actually, we tried a few little queries on Google to see how it would work. Like we just searched something really basic. So heart healthy diet, for example, right? So this little prompt at the beginning, this little prompt at the beginning is all AI generated. So it's a bit of a summary of all of these Google searches below it. And you can see, for example, like it says fruits include your leafy greens, broccoli, and whatnot. And if, let's say you have a feeling that maybe this information isn't correct, you can click these links over here and actually get where they're referencing this information. So if you don't trust, for example, like this link or like the American Heart Association as a link or whatnot, you can go through it, make sure that the organization that's actually talking about this information is a reputable organization, and make your decisions based off of that. I remember actually at the last tech cafe I was at, I had a question about storage for your phones. So let's say your phone storage is almost full. Like you can ask Google it, and it'll give you a bit of information about that. So let's say delete unused photos and messages. You can click the link, and as you can see, for example, this is coming directly from the Apple website. So it's a source that you could trust for, let's say, your iPhone. And yeah, so that just concludes my short little presentation. So if you guys have any questions at all, please let me know.
Can we put our hands together for Imran? Awesome informative. Thank you, Imran. Thank you so much.